of the International Right to Know Day, which falls today, the September 28th. Now, public access to information, is it a myth or a reality? That's the very big question. And we're hoping that by close of this session with the Coalition on the Right to Information, we should have an answer to that very big question. You need to stay tuned to us here on Joy News on Multi TV. We're also live on the DSTV channel 421, on Go TV at channel 144. We're streaming live on Facebook at facebook.com/Joy News on TV. And you want to be a part of us, you can also get live updates on our Twitter handle. But just so you know, the hashtag is Pass RTI Bill Now. Hashtag Pass RTI Bill Now. Be a part of that conversation and let authorities hear from you, demanding that bill is passed immediately. Now, 16 years ago, the Right to Information Bill was submitted to Parliament in the hope that in the name of transparency, our legislators would be interested in giving access to information and in return enjoy the benefits of running a transparent government. The bill has still not been passed, and over the years it's been moved to and fro Parliament, to and fro Cabinet, with political parties not showing a lot of will to pass it. Today, we're commemorating, like I said, International Right to Know Day, and we are here. We'll be taking you through the programs that we have, but just so you know, we're also live on Joy, your superstation, Joy 99.7 FM. I'm going to bring in some of the organizers so we can talk about what to expect today. And I have with me here Ugo. Ugo will join us. Ugo, tell us a bit, tell us your full name, since it's quite a mouthful, and then tell us what to expect today.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Ugonna Okigwe. I am the consultant for the Right to Information Coalition. Yeah, so today we want to, first of all, create awareness about right to information. It's been over a decade we've been on this, and today being Global International Day for Universal Access to Information, everybody's celebrating globally. Civil society actors are celebrating globally. So today what we want to do is to bring people to share their experiences on accessing information in Ghana. We want to showcase the challenge we have with the current regime without an RTI law. Now, we have people from different sectors telling us what they have seen when they attempted to access information. We have stakeholders from the civil society. We have private sector. From the academia, they will tell us their perspectives in terms of research, when they want to access information for research, what are the challenges that they face. We'll have somebody from the media also talk to us. We'll have our friend Manas Azure speak to us on some of the challenges
that he personally has faced, I'm sure, as a journalist looking for information just to make our society better, I'm sure.
Exactly, and I find it quite interesting because it's almost like we public servants work for us. So the information they generate as they are working should be for us to be able to analyze whether they actually are doing what we actually expect them to do. So we will also have someone from the youth speaking to us about from the youth perspective, what are the challenges? In fact, the person who is supposed to speak had been part of a process we did, an exercise we did on requesting for information, and he had quite an experience, which I'm hoping that he will share here today. We have a pensioner who will also talk to us about some of the challenges that he has faced, and I think it's an interesting dynamic. We have somebody from the Corruption and Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition who will try to also do the linkage between RTI and corruption.
Okay, so this is basically to whet your appetite, so you know that this is a conversation you want to be a part of. But you know, social media has made it so easy for you to be a part of such a big conversation like this. And so, like I said, the hashtag is Pass RTI Bill Now. And that's how you get your voices heard on this. And we're basically saying that we have to exert a lot of pressure on authorities to get this done. Right. What is the current bill, state of the bill, if we should just quickly go through that and hand over to Mina Mensah?
Okay, so when this government came into power, we were engaged they sent us a letter to look at the current bill and see whether there are still some outstanding issues, because the previous parliament worked on it and we had a fine document out. So we looked at it and we made some comments. So the AG sent us another letter on May 30th saying that they've worked on it and they've sent the bill for cabinet approval. And that's where we are till today. It hasn't moved from cabinet.
It hasn't moved from cabinet. That's just a tip of the iceberg. We're going to have that very big conversation here. Is it a myth or a reality? Public access to information. My name is Gifty Andopia. Let me hand over to Gina Mensah. She is the vice chairperson of the coalition of the Right to Information Coalition, and they will be having this conversation. Samson Ladia NNA will be moderating that. Let me hand over to them. Gina, over to you now.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Coalition on the Right to Information Ghana, the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, I'd like to say a big welcome to everybody here. It's really an honor and a privilege for me to stand here and welcome you to this year's Right to Know Day, which has now been redesignated to be the International Universal Day for Access to Information. The journey towards Ghana's passage of the right to information has been ongoing for the past 17 years. Unfortunately, as of today, we still don't have a law. However, it doesn't mean that we don't have access to information. Article 21(1)(f) of the Constitution of Ghana gives us the right to access information. However, are we able to get the kind of information that we need? Today, we are not here to talk about what the bill contains or it doesn't contain. What we want to talk about is the cost of not having a right to information law. Because at the end of the day, we are citizens of this country. We are the ones who elect people. We are the ones who have representatives who are supposed to do things for us, who are supposed to represent us. How do we know that we are being really represented? What are the kinds of decisions that are made on our behalf? Do we know? Are we really participating in governance? And this is what we want to talk about today when we are commemorating the International Universal Day on Access to Information. And so I stand here today and say that you are very welcome. There are a few people here representing various sectors of this country who are going to talk about their experiences when they wanted to access information. And trust me, it will be interesting. And out of that, we want to see the cost of not having a right to information law. How much is that costing us? What kind of development agenda do we have? Are we part of the development agenda? And if we are not, why are we not part of that agenda? It all boils down to the fact that, yes, we do have access to information, but what kind of information are we accessing? People say that because there's a lot of information around, journalists can access it. But can I collaborate the information that the journalist has thrown out? How do I get that kind of information? On this day that we are celebrating this day, we are giving you the experiences of various people in this country who have tried and the results that they got. And out of that, we can determine for ourselves what is the cost of not having an access to information law. So welcome and have an interesting time. Good afternoon.
And thank you all who are listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM, and those of you who are watching on JoyNews channel on Multi TV. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini. I'm going to be your moderator this afternoon, and we thank you once again to Mina Mensah for the introduction that she is giving us. As you know, we have a number of people here who have attempted to access information. Some of them eventually got it. Some of them did not get it. Some actually had to go to court to compel the state to release information. And even after they got the court to compel the state to release the information, they had to pay for it. They went through some experiences that they would like to share with all of us, and more importantly, that the legislators of this country will get to know and should account to Ghanaians why they are delaying and why they are disinterested. We can say that for a fact. They are disinterested in passing a right to know, a right to be able to have access to information. If I am a citizen and I pay tax, I should know what my tax is used for. It's as simple as that. Why is that so difficult for the Ghanaian politician to understand? I don't know. So on this day of public access to information having been declared as a day set aside to celebrate such occasion, in Ghana here, the Right to Information Coalition wants to dedicate the day not only observing through song and dance, but to interrogate the issue once again. And you know, our journey has been over a decade to have the law passed. In 2009, it was hoped that it would have been passed. It was not passed until the parliament elapsed. When that parliament elapsed, it handed over the baton to the next parliament. The expectation was that the next parliament was going to pass the law. It never did. And as you know, by the 2016 elections, when we were going into it, there were all sorts of promises that the law will be passed before the elections. It never happened, including promises from presidents. It never happened. Now, during the campaign, we heard a promise by the current president that this will be one of the first things that he would do. How many months have we done? What do we know about where the bill is? Have you heard of the excuses that have been given by the Speaker of Parliament and the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament? Have you heard of the excuses they have given? Well, at this juncture, let me say that we are going to have from civil society organizations, Beauty, MFR. We are also going to have from civil society organizations, Nana Akwesi Ewa. I'm sure that that name rings a bell when you remember the Justice Anthony Yeboah of the Human Rights Court 2 ruling that gave the right to the Citizen Ghana movement to have access to the documents and information concerning the infamous bus branding saga. Also in academia, Dr. Jemima Nunu, okay, I understand she's not here yet. We will also be joined from private sector. We are joined from private sector, Senor Hosi, who is a board member of the Private Enterprise Federation, but most of you associate him with the Chamber of Petroleum, bulk oil distributors, so to speak. Of course, also, he is with the One Ghana movement, a very new movement that is also championing responsible leadership and responsible citizenship. Then we will hear from David Annan, who is a former MCE for Tema. From the media, Manasseh Azore Awene is also here. He will tell us the difficulties he has encountered in seeking information that the public, that is public information that the public deserves to know, the difficulties he's had to go through. Then we will also hear from Samuel Asel, Financial Intelligence Center. We have Abubakar Nawaz, representing the youth. We have a community activist, Fazi Ofe Tete, and a pensioner, Seth Abloso. But before we have them tell us their stories, let us hear some solidarity messages from Star Ghana and UNESCO. We begin with Star Ghana, who is represented here by Tieko Saba. Tieko Saba, please, let's hear from you very briefly. Put your hands together for her.
Thank you very much, Samson. And welcome to you all once again. Star Ghana is pleased to be part of this initiative by the Right to Information Coalition. We see this as a very important part of Ghana's active citizenry. One of Star Ghana's vision is to see an assertive and active citizenry, and we cannot do that without information. We cannot assert ourselves if we do not know the facts. We cannot speak about the issues that are important to us if we are not given the facts, if we are kept in the dark by the civil servants, the very people who have been put into places of authority to serve our needs as citizens. Star Ghana is very, very impressed about this work, and we are happy to support. We see this as important for our democracy going forward. The Constitution mandates and gives us freedom of association, and we are all free to associate. But how do we associate if we do not have information? This is key to our development as Ghana. We are looking at 60 years of independence, 25 years of the Fourth Republic, and we are still asking basic questions about where do we get information from all aspects, and we all have experiences. Maybe you want access to your own health documentations in hospitals, and they tell you it's confidential. Today, we hope to break the myth. For Star Ghana, we are looking at two key things: that government is able to interact with citizens and share information that is important to us so that we can hold them accountable in line with the social contracts. This is important to us. One of the things that we are aware of is that it looks like when it comes to social policy bills, the states and parliaments are not interested in passing it. And let me give you a few examples. We already know that the Right to Information Bill has been in several parliaments for the past 17 years. We know how long it took for the Disability Bill to be passed. The Affirmative Action Bill is still on the table. The Spousal Rights Bill is still on the table. The Land Bill is still on the table. These are important social bills that are important to us as citizens because it gives us the right to access the services that are for us. And for us, we are asking that when will we make this happen? We want to see this as a legacy for the new administration, the new government. Free SHS will be seen as a legacy. We want the government to take the Right to Information Bill seriously and pass it, so that would also be one of the legacies that they will be known for. So I commend once again the organizers, and I assure them of Star Ghana's continuous commitment to supporting their work. Once again, I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Teku Saba of the Star Ghana. And you're still live on Joy 99.7 FM and on Multi TV. This is your Joy News channel. And this is the International Day for Universal Access to Information. And as you know, this day has been so recognized by UNESCO. UNESCO is this afternoon at this place represented by Kwesi Asari Odai Enim. Let's hear from him briefly.
Thank you very much. Panel members, friends from the media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the UNESCO Accra Head of Office, Mr. Tiso Dos Santos, I bring you a solidarity message from Ms. Arina Bokova, Director General of UNESCO, on the occasion of the International Day for Universal Access to Information. In a globalizing world, access to information is vital to build more inclusive, sustainable knowledge societies. This is the message of the International Day for Universal Access to Information, focusing on the key role that access to information plays in taking forward the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Access to information is a fundamental right. It allows women and men to understand and participate in creating and sharing the knowledge they need to contribute fully to society. It is a condition of informed citizenship, helping to hold governments accountable. It is a driver of innovation and creativity, widening opportunities for all, especially for girls and women. Being informed starts with the commitment of governments to develop, promulgate, and enforce policies and laws on the right to information to guarantee the respect of this human right. This requires efficient implementation mechanism and a culture of transparency across all types of institutions. Citizens need also to have the critical thinking, literacy, and digital skills required to access, analyze, and use the information in different ways, offline and online. This is why UNESCO calls on all governments and partners to leverage the power of information and communication technologies to help achieve sustainable education goal 4 for ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Access to information is also about promoting development of content that will be relevant, local, and multilingual. All of these calls for proactive policies and strong partnerships at all levels. The International Day for Universal Access to Information is also an opportunity to renew our commitments to freedom of expression and the safety of journalists. The media play a crucial role in facilitating access to information to citizens and in monitoring important social issues while enlightening their audience with insight and knowledge. There cannot be universal access to information without free and independent media. Access to information is not only a goal in itself, it is also a key contributor to the realization of all other sustainable development goals. It is therefore crucial that we continue our efforts to ensure that every woman and man enjoy full access to information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwesi Asare Odoi Enim. You're still listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM and on the multi-TV. This is your Joy News channel. And we will now hear the experiences of persons who have attempted to access information that should belong to them because they are members of the public and the information is public information. Now, I'm stressing this so that you pay attention as this process goes on. That information that is public information and yet members of the public have difficulty accessing. What makes that information public information in the first place? Our Constitution says the state has to take every step to eradicate corruption. Then it moves into Article 21 and says that we have a right to know and we should have access to information. Then it moves a little further down to Article 40, 41, and it says that you have responsibilities. Your responsibilities include safeguarding or protecting state property from being, as it were, wasted. How do you do that without information? But people every day try to get information from the state and they just are unable to get it. People in public offices sometimes think that that public office belongs to them. When it is your money you pay as tax that is used to pay them, they feel they give you the information if they feel like giving it to you. There are a number of things that are going on now in the country, and if you have followed the SNIT saga about the SNIT OBS, or software, so to speak, just yesterday or today we have been treated to a story where journalists went to get information and there was a group of officers of the SNIT who insisted that that information ought not be given. Well, today is the 28th. I suppose those people are going to the bank. The money they are going to be paid with is money from you. And the information you are seeking, they say they won't give you. That is interesting. So let's begin with Nana Akwesi Ewa of the Citizen Ghana movement. When they sought information and it was not forthcoming, they didn't stop there. They went to the court, and the court gave them the right to the information. They eventually got the information on the infamous bus branding. Nana Akwesi Ewa, please, let's hear from you in the next 3-4 minutes what experience you have to share.
Very well. Good afternoon. Well, I have just a couple of minutes, so I'll be very snappy about this. I practice as a lawyer But if I'm not in court representing a client, part of what I do is activism. And my activism focuses on good governance and social justice and social accountability. And as you know, the greatest threat to good governance is corruption. And the fight against corruption, a critical element is access to information, what you probably call the Sunshine Campaign. Now, for us at Citizen Ghana Movement, when the story of the bus branding scandal broke, there was a lot of reportage in the media giving different accounts. And so we were not clear as to what actually were the real facts, what the contract sums were, how much was paid, whether it went through competitive tendering before it was awarded or it was sole sourced. So we wrote, and we thought to ourselves that we needed that information. However, we were not given that information, and so we proceeded to court. Now, in court, one of the arguments that the Attorney General put up was that we needed a right to information law to be able to access that information. And we countered that argument by saying that Article 21(1)(f) of the 1992 Constitution already guarantees a constitutional right to information. And therefore, the absence of a right to information law, which has been sitting in Parliament for over a decade, should not operate to deny us as citizens the right to information. And lo and behold, the court agreed with this position and made a definitive pronouncement that, yes, indeed, the failure on the part of the state to pass that very important legislation does not deny you and I, as citizens, the right to information, and that it is already constitutionally guaranteed by Article 21(1)(f) of the 1992 Constitution. Now, interestingly, at the same time, we had sued on Ameri in a different court. And so when this ruling came, when this judgment was delivered by the Human Rights Court 2, Ameri was before Human Rights Court 1. Immediately that decision came in Human Rights Court 2, the institutions that we had sued, that was Parliament, the Ministry of Energy, and what have you, connected with the Ameri deal, immediately filed all the processes, all the documents covering Ameri. And so, based on the judgment in the bus branding matter, they felt compelled that they needed to give the information anyway, because there's the probability that that court or that judge would follow the decision of his brother was high. And so they gave that information. Now, it is very disappointing to learn that citizens have to go through this hurdle to be able to access public information. We took it upon ourselves to go to court. But the question then is, how many of us, how many of Ghanaian citizens will be able to afford filing fees to sue to be able to access such critical information? And so, though this decision is there, very useful, there is still the need to pass that right to information law. I'd like to share with you currently what we are doing concerning another piece of information that we sought from the Electoral Commission. So in our fight against corruption, what we identified, led by my colleague here, a member of the Citizen Ghana Movement as well, Lolan Eko Sego Moses, was that political patronage, all the many issues that you see, the corruption scandals, bus branding and what have you, is simply because during campaign time, people put in a lot of money, and so when a government comes in, they need to sort out those people. And so you see a lot of contract awards and what have you. Now, interestingly, the Constitution places an obligation on political parties to publish their audited statement of accounts. And if you look at the Political Parties Act, it says that these audited statement of accounts should detail monies that are given by persons to fund political parties. And so we wrote a very beautiful letter to the Electoral Commission asking for the audited statement of accounts of political parties that have been submitted to it. We are presently in court. The Electoral Commission has filed a process in court saying that no political party has filed any such statement of account. However, thanks to the good work of you, the media, we know that some political parties have indeed filed statement of account. And so we're from this assertion that no political party has filed statement of account. And God willing, beginning the next legal year, we are going to go back to court in order to finish that case. We hope that by the end, we hope to be successful in that case, and by that case, we'll be able to push the frontiers of the Sunshine Campaign in the fight against corruption. So I'm happy to be here this afternoon. My little message to you all is that as members of the media, you have a critical role to play when it comes to sensitizing citizens on the right to information. It is very important that this conversation is kept alive. It shouldn't be put at the back burner. It should always be alive at the front. We should keep talking about the right to information. It helps you in your work. It helps us to be responsible citizens. It helps us to contribute to good governance. And please do not be downhearted by the fact that the Right to Information Bill has been laying in Parliament for over a decade without passage. Be mindful of the judgment in the Bas Brandon case and use that to your advantage to access information whenever you want. For us at CGM, I want to end up by saying that what we have decided to do is to set up an information bureau so that if any person, be it a journalist or a citizen, seeks information from a public institution and is unable to do so or is having difficulties, just come to us at CGM. We would assist you at little or no cost to you at all. So that is the information I have for you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nana Kwesi Ewa. And the Citizen Ghana movement have actually blazed a trail when it comes to using the judicial process to compel the state to give information that belongs to us. Now, we will invite yet another person who would share with us, and we want to have the former MC for Tema to also come and share some experience with us. And each one of them, there are quite a number of them, each one of them is doing 4 minutes, not more than 5 minutes, so that we can hear from as many of them as possible. And we know that our MPs, our policymakers, they are all tuned in to Joy 99.7 or watching TV on the JoyNews channel. We are coming to you live from the Ghana International Press Center, and this is the International Day for Universal Access to Information. It's a shame that we have been at this for over a decade, getting to 2 decades, and Ghana can still not be proud to have a law that allows people to get information without any difficulty. Kwesi Ewa says they are going back to courts to compel the release of information. Why? If you are a member of government or you're a public officer and you engage in any transaction, you do so on behalf of the people. The documentation and everything regarding that transaction is for the people. So why can't the people have it? Before we went for elections, the state was in a hurry to pass a law to know what you do in your bedroom. But they are so reluctant to pass a law for us to know what they use our money for. Let's welcome David Annan, former MCE for Tema, to also share with us briefly. Put your hands together for him. Put your hands together for him.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I have found myself in a place where I have to do something which looks quite simple, but because of where I'm coming from, it looks a little difficult. Because we are looking at why people are not giving, why government officials are not giving information. And my longest time of service, of working, is in the public sector. So I find myself in a position where I am now working with a private sector institution to see how I can speak about things which are happening in the service. I should say that from the private sector, sometimes it's quite frustrating when you know that some information is available, but people are not ready to divulge those information. I would like to say that it's good that our moderator here is a lawyer. Can we look at these provisions? Not provisions in the law. I don't want to quote anything there because I'm not a learned brother. But I should say, from the point of somebody who has been in a public position before, public officers will always hide behind oaths that they have sworn. And we need to look at that if we want the right to information law to be passed. Because I want to believe that except there would be provisions in the law which would tell them that whatever they have sworn doesn't apply, they would always hide behind that. And so I should say that sometimes the information may not be available, by my experience, because many people working in the service today have not been trained on how to keep information. Sometimes they just take whatever information is there for granted, and therefore we should rather start thinking about having an archive where all government engagements, information, documents from there be kept. Because I have followed some of the activities of the media, especially the recent one which Manasseh did on a Zoom Live. And you could see that some of the things which we found out were quite difficult for anybody who have the information to decide to divulge it out. I'm giving this one out as somebody who has ever been in public office. And therefore, there must be a way where regularly various contracts that are signed, various arrangements that are made in the public domain, copies of those documents are kept in an archive. Or there must be a way where such information will be kept. Otherwise, the nature of our people would always make it very difficult for them to give the information out. If you work with a clear mind, you should not be afraid to give out any information. But I should say that sometimes you'll find people in the wrong places. And the reason for which they find themselves there, if they should give out the information, their real intentions might come out, they would not do it. It doesn't go for just the politician. It goes for the people in the public service. before I got into politics, I worked as a civil servant for 17 years. So I understood the working of the civil service before I took on the cloth of a politician. And therefore, I could manage and tell what needed to be done. But I want to say, and it's an advice for the legislature, when they are looking at the information bill, which I believe from where I stand and my experience, that is very much needed for good governance. The people who pay must know what we do with their monies. But they must have a clause that will compel whoever has even sworn an oath, especially when they have used money or they have tied the country in the one agreement or the other, that they be compelled to give the information out. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And that's David Annan, former MCE of Tema. And he speaks about many public officials hiding under the confidential clause, when in fact the documents they are dealing with are no confidential documents anyway. And also the need to create, a place where the information will be available so that it can be supplied. Well, the law actually provides for that. The law that is supposed to be passed provides for that the information should be kept and kept well, and when it is needed, it can be furnished the people whose money was used to create that information in the first place, and whose monies are being used to pay the people who are keeping that information. And also, you mentioned about what if it's confidential, what happens? Maybe the information ought not be given out. The law goes through what in Lowland Sego, the Citizen Ghana Movement case, the judge discussed. The harms test is what the law goes through. The question that is asked is, what harm will be done if the information is released? And if any harm will be done, should it be released in the first place? Because that harm ought to be done at all. So I think all of these things are covered, and there should not be a reason why people have a fear to want to be able to eavesdrop on our conversation, but not want us to know what they use our money to do. Let's now invite Mr. Samuel Esel, who is coming from the public sector, from the Financial Intelligence Center, to also share with us. Okay, we don't have Mr. Samuel Esel yet. So let's hear from Manasseh Azure Awene. Manasseh Azure Awene, who is from Joy 99.7 FM, or from the Multimedia Group.
Thank you very much, my lawyer, who is currently in court, helping the Multimedia Group to fight for information that we are seeking from some public institutions and ministries that used our monies for things that are not very palatable. I'm going to share a few practical experiences, and I'll be specific because this is information we've already put out there. In April this year, we wrote letters, that's the Multimedia Group, to 3 main institutions, public institutions, and 1 private, that's the Jospon Group. And our mission was to get information on some very questionable contracts that were signed with the public money. And what happened was, the Jospon Group said, well, for certain reasons, we cannot give you this information, but this public information, you can contact the state agencies. We sent letters to the District Assembly's Common Fund, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. And the excuse they gave was that they actually leaked our letter to the Jospon Group because we did not copy Jospon Group in our correspondence. And an official of the Ministry of Health actually told me this. And I said because Jospon Group had sued me over a Facebook post, they were not prepared to give the information. The health ministry actually wrote back to tell us they wouldn't give us the information. by the administrator of the Common Fund. I called her on phone. She sounded extremely rude and said because of this case, she wasn't going to. So when I was about to even explain, she hung up on me. Now the third institution, as the Ministry of Local Government, decided to write to the Attorney General's Department to ask whether or not to give me the information. So I kept going. There were days I went to the ministry for about 3 times, and the chief director told me that they were still waiting for the Attorney General's Department to reply or respond to their request, and that would inform them on whether or not to give the information. It took so long to get that response, and if you know the ministries, if you are to kneel down and crawl from the Ministry of Local Government to the Attorney General's Department, that shouldn't take you 5 minutes. That's if you're crawling. So what was holding this information? I decided to bypass his excuses, went ahead to verify, and the Attorney General's Department told me it was a lie. No such letter had come from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to their outfit. So I came back to this same official, the Chief Director of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, and I'm talking about Charles Dondio. And he said, well, it seems there was a mix-up. The Director Legal perhaps did not send it and all of that. Eventually, they agreed to send this letter. So when they did, I requested for a copy of the letter they had sent. And this was about 3 months after we had sent the information. But normally when you go ahead to publish, they come out to say the journalists did not even wait for us to respond. When the Attorney General's Department responded, the response was that you can go ahead and give this information because what is in court has nothing to do with what Multimedia Group is seeking. So go ahead and give this information. And did they give? A week later, I came back to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and met the Director of Finance and Administration, one Frank Raji, who was the one who actually wrote the letter to the Ministry of Local Government, Attorney General. And the response was that, well, we are still waiting for the Attorney General to respond to our letter, and that would inform us. And each time they would tell me, well, this is public information, we have no difficulty giving it to you, but we have to ensure that nothing untoward happens. So when he still gave me that excuse, I said, well, I was at the Ages Department last week, and I am reliably informed that your letter has been responded to, and that letter says you can go ahead and give the information. Well, we have not received it yet, so wait for some time when we get it. So I said, okay, this is a copy, because I knew they would give excuses. So I made a photocopy of the letter from the Ages Department because I requested for a copy. So I gave it to him and said, if you doubt its authenticity, you can go and verify. A week later, I called back, and the response was that those contracts and documents I was asking for were all missing. So they would have to sit down and decide whether or not to write to the agencies under the Ministry of Local Government to see if they had copies. And I said, the agencies did not sign these contracts. You signed them, and you are still paying the companies for these contracts. So how can they be missing? So there I told him, and I'm talking about Mr. Frank Raji, and I'm happy this is live on air, that I am convinced that you are trying to hide this information from me. And we had to eventually go and do the story. So as we speak, we have not gotten that information. Now, why would an investigative journalist want to rely on such official sources for information? Sometimes, some people make very ignorant statements about investigative journalists that yours is just to give the information, let the public judge. That is not what it is all the same, all the time. If somebody alleges that a contractor has given a president a car, conventional journalism says, oh, play the voice of the one alleging and get a response from the president and let the public judge. But an investigative journalism, your work is to actually find out whether a car was given and whether that car was accepted. And sometimes we cannot just allow the public to judge because the public does not have what it takes to reach the right conclusion when enough information is not given. And another important reason that information is critical is sometimes the information you get will help you to connect the dots and make the story more understanding. For instance, if we did not have the Registrar General's Department, it is one of the most progressive institutions in this country when it comes to giving information. When you write and pay, they'll conduct the search and give you the information. Now, if you have 10 separate companies being single-sourced for a 98 million Ghana cedi contract, it does not raise a lot of questions. But if you get to know that all the 11 companies that have been handpicked for that contract belong to one single person, then that's when you begin to ask more questions. And there's another institution, the Public Procurement Authority, which is also supposed to publish these pieces of information online. Before our investigation, there were a lot of contracts by the Ministry of Local Government which were on the website of the PPA. But when we started with the publication last week, I went back to the same site, and a lot of these contracts have been wiped off from the website of the Public Procurement Authority. So it looks like without this law, some government officials behave as though they do us journalists a favor, or even the public a favor, by giving this information. We shouldn't be so, because when you go around the country, somebody talked about this bureaucracy. All the assemblies we visited in all the 10 regions, the coordinating directors, who are the administrative heads of the districts and metropolitan assemblies, told us that we cannot speak unless we get clearance from Accra. That's the chief director of the ministry. And the chief director of the ministry is also not prepared to give information. So how do we get this information? So I think when this law is passed, it will go a long way to help journalists in our fight against corruption, and ultimately, Ghana will get better. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Manasseh Azuri Awini. And I intersperse with very important information. I'm inviting to give us the next experience, Beauty MFR of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. And they, I remember, had sought that this, as it were, the public officers, the declaration of their assets, as it were, we know what they do now by the law is that they make the declaration on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, seal it, and give it to the Auditor General, and the auditor is not allowed to open it. So he doesn't even know what you have put in. Even if you put nothing in, he doesn't know. They said 2-3 years ago that don't just do that. When you write it, he must be able to see what you have written, and beyond that, we should publish it. Verification and publication of the asset declared. Parliamentarians were fighting over the new law on this particular area. That law, has it been passed? No, it has not. Let's welcome Beauty MFR of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. It's not a laughing matter, but sometimes you can't help.
Thank you very much. Samson has almost finished my work. Yes, thank you. The principles of good governance are hinged on transparency, accountability, and participation. And these principles are key if we really want to make good governance a reality. At the national level, as a coalition, access to information is very important to us because we can only hold duty bearers accountable when we have information. And we can only make corruption, bring it to the barest minimum, if possible, if we have information. Corruption, as we know, happens in secrecy. How do we unveil that? We need information to do that. And as Samson earlier talked about, yes, GNCC set out to look at how ministers and all people who are mandated to declare their assets, director levels. Sometimes we look at the politicians, but it's not just politicians. The law mandates everyone who is at the level of director to declare their assets. But even when they are not supposed to verify, it is even difficult for people to declare their assets and liabilities, if I would say, because when it comes to asset declaration, the focus has always been on the assets and we forget about liabilities. But we all know that one day in public office can make a difference in somebody's life, and you can use that to offset any liabilities that you have. And as a result, GACC did a research to see how many people have been able to declare their assets. And that survey finding was interesting. Even getting the information was difficult. And when we even published the information, some people almost lost their jobs because they were confronted that how did they give out that information. I'm happy to say that we are currently working with the Auditor General. We have written him to ask him to make public the current list of people who have declared their assets, because as the current law mandates us, people who are out of government and people who are coming in are supposed to declare their assets. We are now in the month of September, so it is interesting to see how many people have declared their assets so that we will be able to monitor. Aside that, some of the challenges that the other colleagues have shared, especially for us, when we have citizen groups at the district level who engage with duty bearers, to get even information that may not be information that is sensitive, sometimes it's challenging for the citizen groups. These citizen groups only need the information to monitor service delivery and development projects at the district level, but duty bearers refuse to give them the information until we come in and intervene. Some of this information are not given. But it is interesting to note that, of course, because people take advantage of the district level, we have seen projects that have not been implemented, but in the books of the assembly, there were amounts written. And when we have gone to the field to verify on the field, we only saw trips of sand for a project that has been designated almost completed. And when the assembly was confronted, they had responses, and quickly structures appeared within a space of few months. What it means is that those beneficiaries were shortchanged until that project was introduced to that community. So it is important for citizens to have access to information that concerns them, information that is relevant to them. Until that is done, this country will be shortchanged, citizens will be shortchanged, and our development efforts will be a mockery. And I stand with the coalition. We are part of the coalition. We believe that it is important. Access to information should not be something that we discuss. It should be given. I am happy that the current president is talking about open data. Open data even has taken access to information at a higher level. So if we cannot even get access to information and we are talking about open data, then it means that we still have a lot to talk about. I want to encourage all of us to still push. It may take a while, but we think that the Access to Information Bill has to be passed, and it has to be passed now, so that we take the fight against corruption seriously. We take the president seriously when he says that he is committing to fighting corruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And if you're listening to us on Joy 99.7 or on Multi-TV on JoyNews channel, we are coming to you live from the Ghana International Press Center. And this is the commemoration of the Right to Know Day, which is the International Day for Universal Access to Information. And it is being organized by the Coalition on the Right to Information Ghana. I really thought that they would be tired and give up by now, because they have been at this for 16 years or more, and they get disappointed by each parliament. And I get to know how they follow the parliamentarians and actually go to sit in Parliament watching that the bill is going to be passed and it doesn't happen. Well, let's now welcome yet another member of the public to also share their experience. And as they do that, get to know the cost of the lack of the information law. Let's welcome a community activist, Fozi Ofe Tete, to tell us her experience. Let's put our hands together for her.
Thank you, and good afternoon all. This right to information bill, let me go this way. 17 years. I'm a gender advocate, and I advocate for the right of women and children. Let me go that way before I come personal, with my own personal experience. You'll be following a woman's case. The thing is that it takes courage for a woman to decide that I'm going to court. One, maybe the lack of fund, the person doesn't have money. Two, even the police stations, it takes courage to go to the police station to go and report. My husband has done this, or he's not taking care of the children. And even when you get to the police station, for the policeman to write the statement, you come back, and then sometimes they will tell you the policeman has been transferred. Then they will tell you that they cannot find the docket. One of my experiences, I had to write to the IGP. I'm talking about Dofsu here. I had to write to the IGP, the former IGP in Sian, Inspector General in Sian. I had to write to her because the woman sitting at, how do you call it, the woman who was supposed to working on her issues was just doing something. And I said, you cannot tell me the CID has been transferred, so the file too has been transferred. Then you have to look for the file. So when I wrote to the IGP, I went there to do a follow-up, and then they brought the letter into the office. So it's like I was in the premises when they brought my letter. So the woman just looked at me, and then she said, hey, Fuzi's son out here. So when she said that, I was just surprised. I said, man, come and I should look at what I've done. That if she loses her position, she's going to curse me. And I said, hey, madam, you can't curse me for anything. I've been here several times. I have to write to the IGP. You know, when I did that, within 3 days, the CID who was lost, and then they were telling me the docket was nowhere to be found. The docket just surfaced just like that. And we had to be in court, up and down, up and down. Even the how do you call it? Filing fee. Let me get to the filing fee too. They are just increasing the filing fee. They won't even inform us. You have a survivor who tries to access justice, and the whole thing is just expensive. How many women can pay all these things? And even like this transparency, the whole thing is just, I don't know. You don't know where to go. They will tell you to go to the registrar. The registrar will just, because you came, you said you want some information on the filing fee. She will tell you to come and sit down, and then you will be sitting down at the corner, and you see some of her people coming to look at you like you are caricature coming to catch them there because you want some small information. Now let me go to my personal experience. I had my house robbed, and I went to the police station to go and do a report. I did the report, and then they brought this policewoman from the police headquarters to come in. She said she was doing this, she was just doing something. She said she was trying to pick some samples of thumb prints. They have robbed me. You have come to do whatever. After she was telling me to give her transportation. Fine, after giving her the transportation. If it is today that I'm going to get that information, God knows. That information, when you ask them, then they will tell you, oh, the information is not ready. Almost 2 years now. Just recently, with the Mampong police station, I went there also to do a report on my own issue. I wrote my statement. The next time, they said we should come. When we came, and I said, because they put us before the commander of Mampong. When we got there, it wasn't only me. I had some people, even some of the members of the Commonwealth Human Rights people also followed me, and some people got to his office, and I said, I want to have a copy of my own statement. He just flared up, and it's like he was just angry, his attitude, and it's like he just stood up and he was wearing his cap, like trying to sweep us out of the police station. So at the question, I was asking myself that, I wrote my statement, and I said I want a copy. What is your problem? Me na me sure, my dear. Why? Give me a copy too. Then he said it was confidential. My own statement is confidential. I was surprised when the last government, when they were leaving, every time we are on the streets, marching, doing everything just to get this bill passed. 17 years ago, they have been in government for how many years? When they lost, I saw them taking the bill to Parliament. So I was just sitting down and saying that, hey, so now this bill, is it concert party or what? You waited when you have lost. And when you got there, now you don't have the majority. So the people who are in the majority also said they won't pass it. Now they are in power. We are begging them. Now we are begging you. We need the Right to Information Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fozi. And you see, it sounds funny. She writes her own statement and she can't have access to it. How do you explain this? But you see, even she tries to get it on her own and she can't get it. Immediately she mentioned that myself and Akwesi Ewa, who are lawyers, we asked the question. Supposing she who gave the statement had been taken to court and she had a lawyer to defend her in a matter, if her lawyer asked for that information in the court, the prosecutors would obviously say, we won't give you. The lawyers have to tell the judge to compel the prosecutors often to give that information. It's a joke, isn't it? Well, okay, we are going on, and please note that the information, the experiences you're sharing are being collated in a way that will be presentable and that will be useful to further push for the quick passage of the Right to Information law. So everything is being collated, and these views will be sent to the stakeholders and governments for them to recognize the cost of not having this law. We will hear now from Senyo Hosi, who is with the Private Enterprise Federation. He's a board member of the Private Enterprise Federation, but you already know him. He's with the bulk oil distributors, and also is with One Ghana, which is a civil society organization. When he's done, we'll hear from a pensioner. Of course, this pensioner may want us to know how he feels about information trickling in on the current situation with snakes. So, Seth Abloso, get ready. Let's hear from Senyo Hosi.
Thank you very much, Samson. Just note that you've taken like 20 minutes of the time yourself, so you can't restrict me to this 5. I won't take it. I'll tell you a little story. It was a rainy and windy night. Just as has always been the norm, the Gulf filling station at Circle and all filling stations across the country have been temporary shelters for commuters who are usually caught up by the rains whilst in transit from work. That night of June 3, 2015 was not an exception, if you really remember. But an avoidable disaster struck when flood, water, fire, fuel emerged to cause a great inferno. And that went into the annals of this country's history as our little twin disaster. It left many dead. Families were bereaved. Families were hurt. A government moved trying to show some form of sympathy, empathy, and promised justice. It promised investigations. It used our taxpayers' monies to set up committees. They did have a lot of meetings, and as usual, there will definitely be conumti. What has become of this report all this while? Journalists have asked, industry players like myself have asked. We do not know what really has become of that committee report. We've wanted to see how real can it ever be as losing lives in a disaster. And they use the taxpayers' money, the people who have become victims of the same disaster, use their money to set up a committee. And 2 years on, refuse to share the information, refuse to help them seek justice. You want to wait for 3 years to elapse, and then when the limits of what start you have your legal thing that you talk about, then you'd say, now I release the report. That's wickedness. That's irresponsible governance. And that's not what this country must stand for. My dear, you are right. Today, when they are in government, they will say they are working on it. Then the opposition will say, let us pass it. It is one nice, lovely pretense. And I really question, what is this with politics and information? There's only one thing that's clear. Information is sunshine, like you rightly put. And one thing we also know is that procurement is the locus classicus of corruption. When there's information, there's more light on sole sourcing, more light on the decisions and the processes. What are you doing? You are closing the door, and you guys just don't understand. That's why we are here claiming right to information, and we seem to be joking. Because those who are supposed to give us that information are not interested in us having the information. It is in their own interest to perpetuate the current system because they profit from it. You hear about corruption scandals only when the opposition often comes. You hear about corruption scandals only when people leak information. How honest are we as a people? How honest are we as public officials in the fight against corruption? If we cannot pass a simple right to information bill. Politicians and public officials must remember, you are nothing but just housemates who we have entrusted our kids to. I can't come back from work when I'm toiling to make sure I pay you and ask you for my daughter, my son's scorecard, and you tell me you won't give me. How dare you? Who are you? Politicians and public officials need to remember that the largesse that they enjoy today are a function of what we, the people, we give. Increasingly, our elected have become very disconnected with us, the electorates. But we are the people. This is our state. The power and the ownership of this state belongs to us. But we entrust it in their hands, and continually we get abused. But remember too, the politicians are not people coming from space. They come from within our own communities. And easily it is that they are a reflection of who we are. The average Ghanaian doesn't like the idea of accountability. So that must also change. The politics and the rhetoric of corruption and the right to information bill has become a very mystical door, where those in opposition are saying that those in power should open the door. And when those in opposition get into power, they shut the door. Yes. There's something in there, and I think that somebody must tell me. Maybe we should all become politicians. We can explain it better. It will be the biggest embarrassment for the current government, and I dare say His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, Dankwa Akufo-Addo. It will be the biggest embarrassment for him if he fails to ensure the right to information bill is passed. Because he's been an advocate for transparency. He's been an advocate for democracy. He's been an advocate for human rights. How much more right can a human being have but for information. Mr. President, show us your true colors, unless, of course, you were also doing us another, aka Azan. Mr. President, as I know him, is not an Azan president. And I believe he will surely show us his true colors and grant us the right to information. So I count and I will bet on that. I don't hope that he will wait for it to get to his last year and then he passes it in hope that if he goes into opposition, he can now use that against those in power. Not at all. He should pass it now. Let's have it now and let us see it have the right effect through his tenure, and that is true commitment to the rights of the people. There's one question I was asking Samson. You go and ask for information, you are told that the information is not there, even if they say they want to give it to you. It's not there. It even goes on to the courts, the case, the whole case. You can go and look for the docket. It is lost. That is where you have the learned people, big English people, and they cannot even keep common records. That tells you the thievery in our mentality as a people. And it transcends and permeates the entire industry. How much more Parliament? Respectfully, it tells us what we are, and we have to be very honest about these things. If we don't start holding people accountable for what they do, there's no way anything will change. So the Right to Information Bill, I'm not a lawyer yet, and I do not understand it so deep. But if we do not find a way to ensure that people are penalized for failing to honor the obligation of duly keeping our records, we should forget it. They will tell you, I want to give it to you, but I can't find it. So all these things we'll be doing here is another grammar. I'm not in for grammar. I'm in, and I believe we're all here to get the effect of the bill, the effect of the act. Let's stay true to our word, and it behoves on us as a people to demand and ensure that from the elected, for we are the owners of this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senor Hosi. Thank you very much indeed. And I have to acknowledge the presence of Vitus Azim. Vitus Azim is sitting in there. I also saw Alhaji Sadiq, famously of Radio Universe, trained many of the journalists that we may find around here. Thank you all very much for coming. And I've just seen that Dr. Jemima Nunu has also joined us. Thank you for coming. We will now hear from Pensioner Seth Aboloso. And when he's done, we should hear Dr. Jemima Nunu give us a perspective from academia as well. Please, let's try and keep it brief because we are running out of time, really.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak as a pensioner, and I speak for many pensioners who have gone to their grave in anguish and hungry. In the year 2000, I had been studying SNIT for a long time, actually since 1982. In 1985, whilst I was General Secretary of the Maritime and Dock Workers Union, I called for a takeover of SNIT. In the language of the revolution at the time, I called for a takeover of SNIT, workers' takeover of SNIT. I was branded as a Confucianist. But you see, SNIT belongs to workers. SNIT belongs to those whose monies are paid in it, not for the state. The state only has a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that it stays afloat and thus meets the objects for which it's set up. So 2000, I was so mad I wanted to take SNIT to court for orders to stop a lot of the rubbish that was going on. And I remembered then that IEA was in the news about some publications and public fora. So I went to IEA, met Professor Jangma, told him my mission. And he said, oh, the main man here is Mr. B.J. Darota. Fortunately, he's in the office. He got somebody to take me to him. In the year 2000, B.J. Darota shook my hands and offered me free legal representation for thinking that this action can be taken. But he added a proviso that I find a pensioner who was suffering the things that I was talking about to stand by me as plaintiff. I looked around the whole of Ghana. I didn't know whom to trust to stand by me for the long haul. I had even then forgotten that my mother was a pensioner. And I wonder even if she could have agreed to come that far. So I left the matter. Then there was a change in government with the 2000 elections. A new government came in 2001. Then following workers' agitations, a committee on pensions, commission on pensions was formed, which went ahead with some proposals for a change. So, in line with the new Pensions Act 766, we have a 3-tier pension scheme. And one of the significant changes that has come is that since then, pensioners have had majority, workers and pensioners together have majority representation on SNIT. So for me, what I was crying for in 1985 has been partially provided, that the majority are workers and pensioners together. Then in 2001, the Ministry of Finance instituted the forensic audit into the Social Security and National Insurance Trust. Every worker, every pensioner needs to seek a copy of the report, need to search diligently and read, if you have the time, read as bedtime stories. Terrible revelations. Terrible, terrible revelations. That I'm surprised that the government that instituted that forensic audit, done by Deloitte and Touche, Worldwide Investments, and a consortium of consultants, did not publish that report until they left office. Terrible, the things inside. Yeah. Now, so one of the questions I'm asking, and only recently, an organization to which I belong has sent a copy of that report to the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, another novel feature in the pensions landscape that we did not have. Pensions Regulatory Authority, that should check every wrongdoing in pensions. We forwarded a copy of that report to them and are asking them to take action on it, even though the report predates the establishment of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. So we are waiting. Now, 2015, tomorrow will be 2 years since me as a pensioner, I petitioned the NPRA to stop SNIT when SNIT said they were going to celebrate 50 years. And my case was that there was no point celebrating, and that we could only observe 50 years of SNIT, not celebrate. But since seeing the forensic audit report, I now see, oh, that's why they will celebrate. Because there was a lot of money, there is always a lot of money that comes wah, and which they are swimming in with impunity because nobody punishes anybody. I see. So there's a case for celebration. And even when they said they were going to celebrate, they were making justification for very ridiculous projects that they were going to undertake. They were going to build 40 police stations all over the country, as if it's insurance against their getting locked up when their criminal acts are found out. They were going to build a children's library in airport residential area. What's your target for children's? And they say it's a way to, listen, it's a way to promote, develop the talents of future pensioners and also promote lifelong learning. There was a word that was coming, but I've suppressed it. Because SNIT has no business building a police station. Has no, and they say it's their corporate social responsibility. They've lost focus. Your corporate social responsibility, if you have any, is to the pensioners. Not to anybody, not to anybody. You don't make donations when a president dies. You can make donations, but dip your hands in your pockets and encourage staff to make personal donations, but you can't take money from the corpus of the fund. So some of the things pensioners will want to know. For instance, what's the basis or the formula for computing pensions? SNIT, what's the formula for computing pensions? Because only recently, the Health Services Workers Union, members of the Health Services Workers Union who've gone on pension, dissatisfied with their pensions, have petitioned SNIT backed by their union. And so far, 32 of them that I know or are here have got top-ups. So from where did the mistake come? Why is it that such information will not be available to every individual? So before you proceed on pension, your organization can tell you what to expect. Yes. Social Security Bank was a creation of SNIT. Our own monies, General Champion thought it fit to urge SNIT to establish Social Security Bank. Where is Social Security Bank? Now, it partnered Société Générale. Now it's wholly Société Générale. Where did the money from the sale of the shares of SNIT in SSB go? And how much was realized? Now, if I should just round off, the current administration says they are doing a review, and I've appointed PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they say that project is costing $500,000 US. I thought they said you cannot trade in foreign currency in Ghana. I thought there was a law that said you cannot quote for services in USD. Have they gotten any special dispensation to do this? And even for the $500,000, have they paid in full? Have they paid in parts? Is it subject to satisfactory performance or what? These are the questions that many pensioners will want to know. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Seth Abeloso. And we are going to have Dr. Jemima Nunu now, who represents academia, to also share very briefly with us. Unfortunately, we may have started very late, but we are giving ourselves up to 4:10 to close this program. I'm sure that by 4:20 we should be out of this place. We'll hear from Dr. Jemima Nunu, but you can continue the discussion in your homes and on social media, like Kofi Bentel has done on social media. He's not here, but he says today, he's listening here, says today I learnt Ghana's lack of access to information. I lament Ghana's lack of access to information. Politicians keep resisting freedom of information. And you should read how other people are reacting beneath that comment. Let's welcome Dr. Jemima Nunu.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to just briefly explain some of the issues that we in academia face when we try to get access to information. And as you all know, we need it. We need access to data. We need access to documents. We need access to reports, and it's critical to our mandate as tertiary centres of learning. How do you expect us to, for example, develop new technologies and economic models and plan our towns and our cities and improve our education if we're not able to do adequate research? And what is research based on? It's based on access to information. I hear a lot of the time people launch complaints at our local education, especially tertiary education, in that, we're not doing much. We don't develop anything. And we don't even contextualize our work. I'm not one for making excuses, but part of that reason is because we can't get access to the data. Let me give you examples. In many of the business disciplines, we're told to use case studies. Many of these case studies are written about American firms based in the UK or Europe, and there are very little, or very few, I should say, cases that are based in our context. There's a growing number, but still relatively little. One of the reasons I would argue that this is because local researchers and academics find it difficult, strenuous, tedious when trying to get information to write such cases to aid our teaching. I have personal experience of visiting public institutions, providing the relevant letters and authorization to try and get access to certain information that would help in a form of research. To cut a long story short, because I've been told we don't have much time, there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of heated arguments, and then let's just say that I left an office with a very unpleasant feeling. I was basically shifted away just to try and get access to information to aid working. It can often be times be humiliating when you're trying to do what's right, not only by your institute, but by your country. At the end of the day, you're not doing your research for yourself. It's to aid in knowledge sharing and learning. And you're trying to do it, and then you have a person, maybe a member of a civil, a public institution or whatever, tell you that, number one, you have no right to that information, and number two, how dare you even ask for it? This has to stop. I don't think people realize how far-reaching it is. It's debilitating. Because out of that, we're not able to do proper research. We're not able to teach. We're not able to contextualize our studying. I'm not the only academic that has experienced this. Many do, and many complain. And the most painful thing about it is that many of our colleagues that are based outside, that are perhaps non-Ghanaian, somehow miraculously get access to data we can't. I wonder why that is. That should not be the case. Surely, if we understood the importance and the relevance of the academic plight, then we would not put such obstacles in our way. In fact, we do everything to remove them. So, to keep it sweet and simple, I think the RTI bill would pave the way to make my job easier and to aid our academic learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jemima Nunu. She is Director of the Center for Management Development at the GIMPA, the Ghana Institute of Public Administration. Thank you very much. Now, let's invite our very final panelist to speak, and representing the youth, that is Abubakar Nawaz. Let's hear him briefly. Please put your hands together for him.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Since there's no much time, I would like to share some of my experiences I encountered in getting information from some public institutions. But before I proceed, I wish we applaud the coalition for the work they have done so far. If we get to know, they've been pushing the bill for the past 17 years. That means when the bill was first sent to Parliament, I was just 9 years old. And it's 17 years today. And they are still keeping it alive. If it was to be another institution, they would have been discouraged by what is going on there, front and back and all that, and just do what? Just quit. But I just have a very simple message for the youth out there. If you look at the whole show about the Right to Information Bill, those who are going to benefit much from it is the youth of this country. The scandals and the investigations the journalists are bringing out, it's not for the pensioners, it's for we, the youth. All the governments claim that there is no work in this country, but every day we hear, and even these days, the astonishing thing is that when you hear any scandal, it's being quoted in dollars. It's not even in cedis. Meaning they are even tired of the corruption in our local currency. It's being done in foreign currencies. And look at the issue of Senate. The CEO approved $35 million without the approval of the board. I stand to be corrected. Just ask yourself as a youth, how many employments can it be used to create for the youth? $35 million. And it went into the pocket of one individual. Are you happy as a youth? No. So I think we, the youth, we are supposed to pursue this agenda of the Right to Information Bill. I had an experience. I went to the Ministry of Employment and Labor. That was in 2015 when we were doing the monitoring. And my reason being there was to seek information on the number of youth that are being employed in this country and those who are not being employed. Was this too much to ask for? Certainly no. But I was greeted with a harsh comment. The first person I met at the reception, she was like, "Gentlemen, what do you need that information for? Are you jobless?" So I spoke to her in a calm manner. I told her that I needed it for a purpose. She was like, I should drop the letter and go. That I cannot meet the one who is in charge of the information. So I went and came back the following day. And luckily, the chief director of the ministry, he happens to be someone I knew. So I approached him, and he started giving me a long thesis of processes I should follow before I'll get the information. And a message to my fellow youth out there. We shouldn't continue glorifying politicians at the expense of our future. They will use you to win power, and you go to their offices, you cannot do what? You cannot even see them. And trust me, if a politician says that, oh, I want to do A for these people to vote for me, they will do it. Just this new government, how many months have they been in power? They were making noise with what? Free education. Haven't they done it? So what shows that the right to information cannot be passed? If they really want to do it, they will do it. But they don't want to do it. It has been in Parliament for the past 17 years. Government go, government come, government go, government come. What are they hiding? Our own money. And we want to know how it is being used. And we are told that it's confidential. The former MP made a statement that, oh, some of the public officers hide behind the oaths that they swear and all that. It's that same oath that tells you, and when you are even swearing, you say that you what? You uphold and defend what? The good name of Ghana. If someone wants an information for the betterment of Ghana, why are you preventing that person? Are you going according to the oath? You are not. We all pay taxes, and we need to know what our taxes are being used for. If a whole government institution can chunk out $72 million from its accounts for a software, what shows that we cannot generate our own money, but we rather depend on foreign aids?
If you have $72 million in Ghana here, why will you go to India for them to give you $1 million to renovate a presidential palace? And they brought it and you accepted it. Just because there was an Indian who was involved in an issue here. Same issue with the Galamsey menace. The Chinese went to the judiciary and donated computers and a sum of, I stand to be corrected, 2,000 Ghana cedi or so, just to buy your conscience. But your own people come to you to seek information for the betterment of this country, and you say no. So the message I would like to send out to my fellow youth out there is, let's pursue this right to information bill. We are the huge beneficiaries of this right to information bill. If it is passed, we are those going to benefit from it. Our parents are not going to benefit from it. The journalists making all those investigations is for our own good. They are exposing our government for us to know what they do with our monies. So please, let's stop hurling insults at those who expose government. Just because you glorify a politician doesn't mean that someone shouldn't do the good works of Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nawaz. And let's invite George Osei Bempa, who will summarize the issues and the way forward for us. If you're listening on Joy 99.7 FM and you're watching on JoyNews channel on the multi-TV, I understand also that it has also been streaming live on myjoyonline.com. We are coming to you live from the International Press Center, and this is a program by the Coalition on the Right to Information here in Ghana. And this is the day that we commemorate the right to know. It is the International Day for Universal Access to Information. Let's welcome George Osei Bempa to summarize the issues and the way forward, the cost of not having the right to information law.
Thank you, Samson. My name is Osei Bimpe, not Bempa. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going straight to the point in terms of what should be the way forward. First of all, the point has been made that public interest litigation works, but very expensive. In other words, we can employ public interest litigation. But then I add that since we have the lawyers here, what prevents us from going to the Supreme Court to ask if we need even an act of parliament before we get it? So we should try. One of the way forward issues is to try and test the case in court and see if we will even need parliament to frustrate us again. The next point is that there is no way we can attain a very good implementation of the law if we do not build a knowledge, information, or infrastructure and capacities in the form of ensuring that there is a very good and efficient information storage and retrieval system, so that when we ask for the information, we will get it in a form and content that will help us fight corruption or demand accountability from duty bearers. The next point is that the right to information is not about the work of journalism. It's not also about the work of only the people in the academia. It's about citizens of Ghana and our development. Therefore, not only do we need to have it here, but also need to have it at the community level, empower community members to hold duty bearers accountable in a way that services will be provided to meet their needs and aspiration. So that is one more work needs to be done in terms of getting the citizens to be actively asking for information at the community level. But of course, the best way forward is to get Parliament or get the executive to be serious about getting the bill to Parliament. Now, we cannot hold Parliament accountable again because the law or the bill is not before them. What we need now is to get the executive to release the bill to Parliament. Then we can deal with Parliament. If they so delay us again, then we go to the Supreme Court and see if the Supreme Court will also fail us. And I think that they will not fail us because already there has been a ruling at a lower court. So certainly they will reaffirm, I don't know if I'm using the right legal terms, but they reaffirm that ruling to say that all citizens in Ghana have, as a matter of right, access to every information that we use public money to generate. And that is managed by public money, and that is managed by public officials who are paid by those of us here. So it is a way forward that is not, that is asking us to not to give up, but also to find a plan B. And I think that as a coalition, we will have to see how immediately we may proceed to court and get the Supreme Court to rule. Once the Supreme Court rules, I'm told by the lawyers that it is a de facto a law that has been made. And certainly if that is the way we need to go, because we are picking information from somewhere that it might not even be considered in the next parliament, because they are looking at something else. This is another way of frustrating us. Ladies and gentlemen, I may have to end here because you have heard a lot of the issues. But for me, what I get more from all of this is that there is no way we can be serious as a country in terms of fighting corruption, in terms of getting the best out of public resources, if citizens and those who care do not have access to information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bimpe. And the conversation can continue in our homes, in our vehicles, and particularly on social media. Citizen Kofi writes that there is only one reason why we don't have a RTI Act today. Politicians don't want us to know what they do in our name. I think the conversation can continue like that. And let's let our MPs know that if they want to get back to Parliament the next time, they should do what we want. And we have been coming to you from the Ghana International Press Center here in Accra. And this is an event in commemoration of the Right to Know Day, which is a day set aside by UNESCO to recognize that there is a need for information to be as free as it ought to be. International Day for Universal Access to Information. And it's organized by the Coalition on the Right to Information Ghana, powered by Star Ghana, UK Aid, the European Union, and JoyNews. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini, and thank you very much. The Supreme Court route you suggested is good, but you know what? You need a law that will state clearly how many days, if you apply, the information should be given to you. If it's not given to you, what should happen, and all of those things, how the information should be stored. A Supreme Court decision is not likely to give you all of that. But of course, it is also important. Thank you very much. I hand over to Gifty and Apia. And all of us who are seated here, please, there's refreshments right here. Thank you and have a good evening.
So this is where I take over from Samson Ladi Ayenene and all of the members who have given you great speech. That some way, somehow could give you the impression that access or public access to information here in Ghana is actually a myth. Because from all the stories that I have heard, it doesn't give me the assurance, the confidence that it is indeed our reality. But that is why we're here, and that is why we're having this conversation. A few resolutions have come up, by the way, that public interest litigation, it works, but it is very expensive. And the fact that the form and the content of the information bill at the moment must help us to achieve whatever agenda it is that we want to achieve with, when we're seeking that information. We're being also asked to reach down to the grassroots and make sure that they ask questions of their representatives. That's when perhaps it becomes a bit of a reality. Let's get some reactions from what has gone on here so far. I have Vitus Azim, and if you are an anti-corruption person, you follow the issues, you do know who Vitus Azim is. He's former executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Sir, thank you very much for your time here on JoyNews. What are your impressions? Are you frustrated?
More than frustrated. This thing we've done for more than 10 years. And we are begging people that we have elected to rule us to give us something that is our right. It's very sad.
And for someone like you who has been championing anti-corruption or leading the anti-corruption campaign, to say that you are sad, and I'm looking at your face and I'm getting your reaction as well, feeling sad, that gives me a lot of faithlessness. And I mean, what should I do for someone or some people who are looking up to people like you? What should we do in the fight for the right to information law to be passed?
You see, we're in a democracy, and so it's a bit difficult to go beyond what we are doing today. Maybe if we could mobilize Ghanaians to come to Parliament and sit there the whole day, or go to Flagstaff House and sit there the whole day, they will know that we are serious. Because when we have reached, that's the only way we can go.
Why is it that you think that this law is being withheld for so long? Why has it taken us so long to deal with this and deal with it quite comprehensively, as quickly as they wanted to, as something kept referring to, as they wanted to pass the law that allowed them to listen into our conversations?
Well, the reason is obvious. They don't want us to know what they are doing behind the scenes. You see, every politician, the way our politics goes, is likely to have done one thing wrong or the other. And they don't want you to pry into those information. For example, even the asset declaration law, for example. Why do you put declarations into an envelope, seal it, and give it to the Auditor General?
And nobody gets to know what's in there.
It's there. Even for the Auditor General to tell us, these are the number of people that have filed their declaration this year, the Parliament says it's against the Constitution. Which Constitution? The Constitution says the Auditor General has power to put in place measures to operationalize the Act. So the Auditor General should be bold enough and do that.
Well, as far as you're concerned, one of the resolutions that they've passed here is that if need be, they might have to go to the Supreme Court to get some interpretation or to get some sort of ruling that favors, the quick passage of this law. The president, at the time he was in opposition, this was one of the things that they promised that they were going to do. What for you gives you the assurance that they will do as they say, now that they have become the people in charge of the information that we're so seeking?
I still don't have any confidence in it, because the Speaker of Parliament and the Majority Leader have been in Parliament for a very long time. We have met the Majority Leader for a very long time. They will talk nicely to us, but in private they keep saying, oh, we cannot pass this law. And I'll be surprised if this law is passed this year. The same people have been there, they have resisted it. They don't see the need to pass that bill. And that is very sad.
As the coalition, if you were to advise the coalition on what to do, I mean, there's the option of going to court. There's the option of what you just said, marching to Parliament and sitting there the whole day, going to the Flagstaff House and sitting there the whole day. That's if they don't release tear gas on all of us. What else can be done?
This I said last year. If we had resources, we will go to all the constituencies of the leadership of Parliament and campaign against them so that they don't get re-elected into Parliament. That will make them know that the voter has power.
The voter indeed has power, and you have power. But how you exercise that power is the most important thing. Finally, sir, let me ask you whether you think this interaction, the extent to which you think this interaction has been useful to this conversation or to this campaign.
It has been useful because one speaker said this will be the most embarrassing thing to the president if the bill is not passed this year. I think that's very important. And I believe the president is listening, his people are listening. And that I believe that should push the president to ensure that this bill goes to Parliament very soon.
Very soon it should go. Thank you very much, sir. Vitus Azim is an anti-corruption campaigner. He's former executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Still bringing you live coverage of, special coverage on the Right to Know Day. And of course, I have another person here with me. Let you introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, I'm Joshua Alte Papo, and I'm the national coordinator for Access Ghana and a member of RTI Coalition and represent persons with disability, disabled as well.
For persons with disability, have you seen the law itself and the part that concerns you? Do you think there's any reason why government is holding on to the passage of this law?
Yes. No, this law formally actually went with an hour later, the past government, the past administration. And then for 17 years now, up to now, the law hasn't been passed.
What is it in there for persons living with disability like you?
Yeah. Actually, I'm with the person with disability organization as a project coordinator for about 17 years now. And now, wherever we say disability, we have different category of persons with disability. We have the visual impairment, we have the physical challenge, and we have the mental impairment. They are all forms of persons with disability. And with persons with disability, they also have access of human rights. They also have the right for information. But sometimes they find it very difficult to get information from our health centers. If we go to the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, we don't even have a sign language interpreters there. Okay. We have a lot of problems. Even if we need information of our records and things at the hospitals, we don't have it. That's the reason why we want the right to information bill be passed, so that we'll get access to information in all settings. So persons with disability are also part and parcel. They shouldn't be neglected. And that's why I've been elected as a project coordinator for Access Ghana. And Access Ghana is for everybody, whether you are persons with disability or you are non-disability. But able people also are also helping the persons with disability. That's the reason why I'm there, and we're also empowering them.
Finally, do you think this discussion that we've had today has been helpful? Do you think it will help in pushing government to make sure that they pass this law? Yes,
it will help, because this is very, very significant. And with this discussion, I think our president, Nana Akufo-Addo, will help us. Okay. And then our president did a lot because of, he said, free education, and Akufo-Addo have done it. And with this free education, we hope for the right for information bill will be passed, so that every Ghanaian will get access to information, especially our police, Ministry of Interior, and then police stations and other things. Wherever you go there to make a report, actually, I have paid amount at the police headquarters. And then they said, whatever I paid that amount, they'll give me the information up to now.
And you've paid and you did not get that information?
I did not get that information.
Let's see how that goes. Alote Papo, right?
Yes, and National Project Coordinator for Access Ghana.
Okay. So he's just been telling us, giving us a perspective of persons living with disability who are on this coalition. And so we're hoping that you continue the discussion and that you take it much more seriously. The hashtag, of course, is Pass RTI Bill Now. Pass RTI Bill Now. Join in that conversation and let's, as much as possible, exert a lot of pressure on government to make sure that this law is passed. From the International Press Center, my name is Gifty Ando-Apia. And remember, it's all about Star Ghana supporting us on JoyNews, on Multi TV. We've been also live on DSTV channel 421 and on Go TV channel 144. We've been streaming on Facebook at facebook.com/JoyNews. We've been on YouTube. That's our channel on YouTube. We've also been on myjoyonline.com, and there have been live updates on our Twitter handles. That's extensive, isn't it? So you can't say you did not hear, because I'm sure that you heard. We've also been on Joy, your superstation, 99.7 FM. Remember, hashtag Pass RTI Bill Now. Pass RTI Bill Now. It's been fantastic having you. Don't take this for granted. This is a conversation that we necessarily must have if we want to make access or public access to information a reality and not a myth, not something that we toy around with. My name is Gifty Ando-Apia. Thank you very much for your time.